All right, well, let's get it going. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm Randy Wilburn, Director of Education at Zweig Group. Welcome to our online ZLearning course, 15 Things You Can Do to Be a More Effective Project Manager. This 1 hour continuing education program will take you through a variety of real-life scenarios that most, if not all, project managers in the design industry face on a daily basis. Today, we are with Zweig Group Chairman and Industry Expert, Mark Zweig. Mark has been working with and for architects and engineers for over 38 years. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, man. Don't remind me about that time.
I know, right?
Where did it go? Huh?
It flies. It flies. I can't believe I've known you for 20 of those 38 years. So
Yeah,
that's special. But
I'm almost old enough to be your daddy.
almost, not quite. He would have been a young father. So anyway, well, this is the first of what will be several online training programs that we're going to do here at Zweig Group, and I'm really excited to roll it out. And one of the things that we've learned by listening to our clients and listening to the general audience that we deal with on a regular basis here in the design industry is that there's such a need for project management. And so I wanted to take some time today for you to walk me through step by step some of the simple ways that a project manager can be more effective and do a great job, not only for their firm, but for their client.
That's what it's all about. So, where would you like to start?
Well, let's start at the top.
Okay.
One of the first things that you mentioned to me is the importance of managing a client's expectations. As a PM, what should we be doing here?
It's so critical. I mean, client satisfaction is a direct result of how well the project manager either meets or hopefully exceeds the expectations of the client.
Mhm.
So making sure the client has realistic expectations is so crucial. And it's not something that project managers are usually very good at. It's a daily occurrence when clients want to do something that they probably can't do, when they want to do something on a schedule that can't be met, or when they want to do something for a fee that can't be done for that price. And yet, too many times, our project managers just go along with it, knowing that they're not going to meet those expectations, hoping maybe that they can, but knowing that they probably aren't. And that's terrible. You know, you got to be honest with people. You need to figure out how to be tactfully diplomatic, but honest when someone says, we need this done. We have to have this done in 3 months, and it's going to take 6 months, and not necessarily due to factors within your control, like maybe getting it through the city's approval process. That there's no way you're going to be ready in 3 months. So, I think the only way you're going to be able to do this as a project manager is if you have confidence. You've got to have confidence in what you know and what the truth is, and being able to find another client if necessary, if that client doesn't want to hear the bad news that they need to hear.
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, in this aspect of project management, you're never going to satisfy the needs of every client, which is also why you should determine early on in the process whether you're going to take someone on as a client to begin with.
Yeah, you can't work for everybody. Some people are just unrealistic,
Yeah.
or they're not nice. I mean, there are other things that come into play. They don't treat you with respect or treat your people with respect. But aside from that, I just think having the particularly budget and schedule expectations that are not realistic
Mhm.
and not confronted right away on the very very beginning of the project, perhaps even before it's you've made a proposal and gone under contract to do the job, is building realistic expectations. And that's what professionals do.
Okay. Well, let's take this one step further. Now I found a client that I really like, and I've decided that, you know what, I think I want to take this to the next level. We want to develop a proposal for them for whatever project that they're working on. So when it comes specifically to proposals and documentation, you talk a lot about putting the right language in there to avoid misunderstandings. Can you elaborate and just kind of go a little deeper in that area, just so that we have a clear understanding of what you mean?
Well, I mean, you see a lot of design firms that sort of they try to put their best foot forward, and in the process, they name specific individuals who will be involved with the job, or they describe a QA QC process that's never going to be followed. It's bad. Again, or they have a very unclear scope, which is subject to widely ranging different interpretations by the client on exactly what they're going to get. So all that's bad. I mean, obviously, it's in your best interest if you can write very clearly and succinctly. I see a lot of Victorian era English creeping in as per your request, enclosed herewith, per the above referenced agreement, please find the attached proposal. I mean, who in the world talks like that? So, communication's got to be clear. Expectations have to be clear. Describe exactly what you're really going to do. Don't name team members that won't be on the team. I do think that some firms deliberately have a very vague scope, because they feel it gives them the opportunity to price the job very low, win it,
Right.
and then through a process of extra services agreements, get a decent fee out of the client in the end. It's sort of like the contractor approach of a low bid, and then we'll hit them up for you know extra services or change orders rather along the way.
Right.
And so that I don't think that's a good approach either. Not to say that I haven't seen it or even done it myself in the past.
Yeah, I mean, obviously things are going to happen on any project, and you're going to encounter challenges. But I think the question here really is that for a good project manager should make sure that they've got a clear scope of work, that they know what they're working from, and certainly that if they can be straight up with their writing and that they avoid being vague, it will make a big difference. Are there any specific tips that you would have to offer, especially some of these young project managers out there that are just getting into the space of, somebody has put on their desk, here Johnny, this is, or here's Sarah, here's your new project, you're going to take
Right.
this and run with it. When it comes to that, and they have to put a good proposal together, do you have any specific recommendations?
Well, sure. I think everybody should have their writing reviewed by somebody else.
Okay.
Their writing and their fee, both.
Yep.
If the company's well managed, you're going to have contracting authority limits on what people can commit to without getting an officer of the corporation to sign off on it. So that's one issue is the fee itself. But the other issue is just having some other eyes look at what you write, and because sometimes we write into stuff what's there. We see what we think. It's not necessarily there. We fill in the gaps
Right.
mentally.
Right.
And when you hand that off to somebody else, they're a lot more objective, and they may spot some of the problems or oddities or unclear language
Okay.
that needs to be addressed.
Well, you mentioned fees, and that takes me to my next question, which is, so when talking about proposals, I'm sure the fee is another item that needs to be considered. And certainly, as you said, a lot of times people create these proposals and undervalue the work that they're going to do. It's not like you can go back mid-project and revise the fee, right? So I mean, what do
You
you have
can,
to
I
do?
guess, if they change the scope radically.
Right.
You can and probably should. But the problem with most companies in this business is they just follow the pack.
Hmm.
They do what they've always done. They provide the same scope they've always done, whether or not that's appropriate for what the client needs. They price things according to what's traditional, a percentage of construction, or some other rule of thumb that's typically used in the business. And they may not be the right may not be the right numbers for what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so, I think so. The majority of firms underprice their services. The result of that is they have a hard time hiring good people in a competitive environment. They don't have the time to do the quality checks that really need to be done.
Okay.
They can't assign their best people to the job in the first place because they've underpriced it. Now they need to assign lower level people who are not necessarily skilled in what's needs to be done. I mean, I could go down the list. So an adequate fee is crucial. It allows you to consider alternatives. It allows you to do, make sure that the quality is what it needs to be. But so many firms, again, they don't get it because they don't ask.
Yeah.
They just do what they've always done.
Right.
Or they don't think, how can we trim the scope to work within the client's budget? We give them what they really need, but we don't give them a bunch of stuff that we usually give people that they don't need.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing. It really is an art as much as it is a science.
Yeah.
But the fee is crucial. You cannot underestimate that. I've always said to people, you can spend all the time in the world you want managing a very, very meager fee. And you'll, maybe you can eke out a modest profit.
Right.
Or you can just get a good fee in the first place. You don't even have to be that efficient and you'll still make a lot of money.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
and obviously I think the challenge there is that a lot of firms struggle with the syndrome of they don't really know their true worth
No.
in the marketplace.
They think they need every job. I mean, I've said before that any firm really needs to drive demand beyond its ability to supply what the marketplace wants. Once you're in that position, you'll raise prices. You'll only work with good clients who treat you well.
Yeah.
And the majority of firms aren't there. They're worried they can't say no. They need every job they get. They're worried if they say no now, they won't get the next job. I mean, for good reason. I understand that.
Yeah.
But you need to have more work to do than you can possibly do. That's one of your goals if you're marketing.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to raise prices from time to time, especially when, trying to grow a business.
Well, demand is super high right now. I mean, if companies in this business aren't raising their prices today, when are they going to do it?
Yeah.
We got a huge labor shortage. Demand exceeds supply. It's not hard to get work. I mean, now's the time to raise prices.
So we've talked a little bit about proposals. We've talked about just the idea of making sure that the writing and everything is well put together. But let's talk a little bit about the best way to ensure that everyone on the project team that you're proposing understands the expectations of the client. I think managing expectations is huge. So to follow up with writing a proper proposal and making sure that the fee is correct, what's the best way to ensure that everyone on the project team understands the expectations of the client?
I mean, that's a really important question. Of course, if I gave you the stock response of everybody that does PM training, they'd say, well, of course, you hold a project kickoff meeting for every job you do.
Right.
When you know that the average fee of work done by firms is probably like $10,000, and many are working on 1 million jobs less than that, you can't have a project kickoff meeting on every job you do. It's totally impractical.
Yeah.
So therefore, the system breaks down. If I'm going to communicate that at the project meeting, and then I don't have a project meeting, then no one knows anything. And that's the way it is in most companies. They don't tell their people working on jobs anything. It's surprising to me how many do not even have any sense of what the budget is at all.
Yeah.
If you look at the average project team member, there are firms where the project manager themselves doesn't know what the budget is, which is completely bizarre to me.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know a lot of that has to do with the simple fact that some firms basically have closed book management. So they don't they don't have open books. So nobody knows
they're
exactly.
Afraid. Well, it's like, if I tell Bob that the fee is $20,000, then he's going to burn up all that $20,000. But if I don't say that, maybe he'll think it's only $10,000 and we'll make $10,000 extra.
Yeah.
That's that logic of a lot of people
Yeah.
who own companies. Or maybe it's We don't want them to have any information, access to that information, because then they can see what people's cost rates are.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so the fee is one issue. But back to your question about, how do you communicate what the client really wants? Tell people. I don't understand, why can't you just send an email out to the project team and go, hey, the one thing that the client really wants to make sure of here is that we're done by next Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's the single most thing they care about. So if you're trying to be a perfectionist here, this isn't the time and place for it. Now this is the time and place to make sure we're done by Wednesday.
Right. Because that's what the client wants.
That's what the client wants.
Yeah.
I think people don't communicate these things.
Yeah.
They just don't share it. The managers are sitting in their offices in the perimeter of the building with the doors shut. The workers are out in the middle of the room, or they're in other departments or areas of the company. No one communicates what the client's expectations are, what the scope is, what the fee is. So what does everybody do? What they've always done.
Right.
They just do the same thing. It's like, well, we always did this. Okay, but we're not getting paid to do that here. Why are we doing this? You see what I mean?
Oh, I totally understand.
It becomes automatic. Or they'll, I've worked in this field for 10 years, and all my clients tend to want that. Okay, but that doesn't mean that's what this client wants.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
Gotta
I think,
share it.
Well, yeah, and I think you said it, you nailed it right on the head. Each client should be treated uniquely. I think the idea that every client is the same, that's a mistake. If you fall into that trap and treat every client the same way, you're going to get the same results every time.
Well, if you don't share any information with people, what do you expect them to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to tell them what the expectations are.
Yeah.
I mean, I see this over and over again in AE firms, where the PMs and the principals are out figuring out, or the business development people are figuring out what the client really wants. And then when it comes time to actually write the proposal, no one communicates that back to the people who are writing the proposal. There's no intelligence at all in the market, even though they've got all this intelligence. They just
Right.
don't even share it with them.
Right.
So then they do the standard thing that they always do, and then they wonder why they don't get the job.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You see this repeatedly.
So, I mean, for the audience, for those of you that are taking this course, I mean, the idea here is simply, if you work in a place where everything is on a need to know basis, you need to figure out a different option, because that's just not going to work. And so, as a follow up to that, when you're talking about understanding and managing the client's expectations, and just taking the extra time to share everything that you know about the client and the project, which is critically important. So with that understanding, and that all that says to me is that you're relying on other people to ensure that you get this project done properly. You're making sure that you inform them, that you keep them abreast of any changes that are taking place. And for a project manager, that requires a lot of trust. So why don't we take a look, and why don't you explain a little bit more about one of the key attributes that you've always shared with me, is the importance that a project manager must have the ability to influence others,
Yeah.
and certainly even people that don't work for them.
That's right. In the typical firm, there's some kind of a matrix, and the project manager either sits out of the technical discipline areas, departments, and then grabs up resources to do the job, or they reside in one of the departments that's maybe the primary discipline on the job, and then they have to go get people from other departments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very typical scenario. So it's not surprising that in many cases the majority of the project team members do not report directly to the project manager. So how do you get people to perform? And it's some kind of simple stuff. Again, we could be talking about the typical firms that want to talk about performance appraisal systems or accountability systems, whatever. The truth is, the way you get people to perform is they got to like you.
Yeah.
They have to want to please you. And the way to get people to like you is they've got to know you. As my friend, who's a successful guy, and his family owns car dealerships, and they're fourth generation, he runs them. He says people need to know you in order to like you, and they need to like you before they can trust you.
Exactly.
And so if you think about that sequence, and someone lands on your project team and you don't know them and they don't know you, better get to know them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hopefully you can get them to like you. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do that. How about help them out? Do something they need done. Help them. Or make them look good publicly or to their bosses by saying something nice about them. Compliment them.
Right.
Ask them questions. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. That's, as they say, that's the number one favorite subject.
Yeah.
Is yourself.
Absolutely.
So people who ask a lot of questions of others are very likable because they're asking questions. They're showing interest. And I'll never forget my ex-wife has a friend, is a very good friend of hers, and she and her husband came over one time for dinner. And after dinner, she's very close with this woman. Her husband, she knew, but was nowhere near as close with him. She grew up with the woman. And then afterwards, she's like, "Well, what did you think of so and so?" I said, "Really, I didn't think too much of him." I sat there with the guy for 4 hours. He talked about himself the whole time. He didn't ask me a single question about what I do, where I'm from, what I'm interested in. Nothing.
Yeah.
Only talked about himself.
Yeah.
And I said, I wasn't too, the next time that she wanted to get together with him, I thought,
You were like, no.
yuck, I didn't really like that guy.
Yeah.
He's not too much fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
So I don't think that I'm unusual. And I do think this is really, really important. And people think, well, they just have to do what I tell them to do because I'm higher up in the pecking order, even if they don't report to me or whatever. Yeah. Nobody does that.
Right.
No one's got to function like that. No one's going to do what you tell them to do because you're the boss or the boss for the day. Most of these people on these project teams, they could be working in a typical firm, they could be on 6 different jobs with 6 different project managers and 6 different principals in charge.
Yeah.
So who are they going to serve?
Probably the person that treats them the best.
That's it. I'm telling you. You want
So.
If they like you and they know you and they trust you, starting with know, by the way, know, like, and trust, then they'll work with you.
Yeah.
Again, this same friend of mine, back on this subject because this is so critical. He told me, he said, when he came into the dealership as a manager at first, because here I was in my late 20s. Now they worked him through a program where you had to work in all areas of the company, and then they entered over a 2-year period. You had to have your own business first.
Mm-hmm.
You went to college, then he had a business, then they hire him in the business, then they work him in every department for 2 years, and then they have non-family member employees that they interview based on, and ask, what do you think of so-and-so?
Really?
Then they decide if you're going to be in the business.
Right.
Based
on
all that.
Business.
The family business.
Right.
So if you make that cut, he goes, so there he lands up, he's a manager, he's whatever he is, 30, 28, whatever. He goes, he has a meeting. After the meeting, he happens to walk out back, and there is what he calls the real meeting.
Right.
That's where the oldest or most senior employee in the company has a band of people gathered around him.
Holding court.
Putting their interpretation on what just happened.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So he goes, so if you don't befriend that person and win them over, whoever's been there the longest, that's the first person you go to win over. If you don't win them over, you're dead.
Yeah.
They're going to shoot you in the back. And I mean, think about that from the standpoint of being a project manager. I got salty old Joe over there. He's been here. He's 62 years old. He's angry with the world. He doesn't like change. He's always done it this way. And now here you are. You're 32 years old, and you got to tell Joe what to do.
Right.
You're the last guy Joe wants to listen to.
Yeah.
Or work for. How can you win him over? What's going to make his life easier? What's going to make him happy?
And that's an important point because I know a lot of people that are going to be taking this class and that are going through project management training and are advancing through the ranks of their organization. They need to hear that. They need to understand that this cranky Joe or cranky Sue, whoever this seasoned individual is, this veteran on the team, you need to figure out a way to befriend them as well, and don't look at them and say, well, their time has passed them by, because a lot of times you can do that at your own peril.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So
that's so true. Now we could sit here and talk about PERT charts and CPM logic networks if you want some standard project management training advice, which I think is mostly BS.
Right.
Because most of us already got all that stuff in school at some point.
Yeah.
It's not going to do anything that really makes your life easier. You know, make that person like you, that skeptical, long-time employee that you've got to work with on your team.
Yeah.
That's going to make your life easier, and it's going to make your jobs go a lot better.
Absolutely. And because this is a people business, you've got to manage the people both inside your organization and outside your organization. So those are some really great points. Why don't we talk now? We'll kind of switch gears, and as we've gotten through this process of putting a proposal together, making sure that it's crafted tightly and it makes sense, that we've got a really good fee involved, that we are, managing the expectations of the client and our internal team. Now talk to me a little bit about about the importance of a good electronic filing system.
Well, it's just, you go in so many companies and it's disastrous.
Yeah.
They've got different people working on the job. They can't find the proposal. They can't find the contract. They can't find reports that were written or information that's needed for other people to do their jobs. They can't find meeting minutes because everybody's got information stored somewhere differently.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, even if you work in a firm that has no standard system, you could create a system and throw it into digital Dropbox.
Right.
And everybody could have access to that. Yeah. And so you need to do that, because if somebody's not there, somebody quits, somebody leaves, we need to be able to find everything.
Yeah.
And so it's crucial, it's a big problem. It's a big mess in most companies. What I try to get people to understand is, you don't create the file as you need it for the job. You create the file system for all your jobs. And then when you open up the job number, there it is. All the categories and subdirectories are right there. So when you save any document, boom, you can save it to the proper place. It should be on a wide area network. It should be, a file server somewhere that you can access and everybody can access, a shared drive.
Yeah.
And, there's so many tools today that make that easy. In the old days, it was a lot more expensive. We used to have the dedicated servers right there. Today, you don't have to do that. You can rent space. You can use a variety of services. There's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah, everything's in the cloud now. So, but I think, and you bring up a good point. And I just want to drive this home so that everybody's clear. It doesn't matter what system that you're using, whether it's a legacy system that your company has. If you're not utilizing this system, you are making a grave mistake. I mean, you've got to make sure that you're keeping track of all this information and that you have some type of protocol that's systematic that you follow every time you enter into a new project.
If they don't have the system wherever you're working, create one for yourself.
Right.
Make sure all your jobs are done that way.
Right.
Because when somebody leaves or somebody's not there and you need information, you'll be damn glad you had it.
Yeah.
Or later on, you have to go back. You'll be glad you had it.
And the other piece of this, which is the flip side of this conversation, which is simply that your client will certainly be impressed that you're able to get your hands on materials and documents that are relevant to whatever particular project that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Yeah. I mean, you look like you have your together. Forgive me for saying it, but it's that simple.
It's okay.
When you can't find information, you don't look like you have your act together.
Right, right.
That's not good for the company.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's move on and talk a little bit about in this realm of project management. You've always suggested that you shouldn't put off until tomorrow, and I love this expression, what could be done today. What do you mean by that?
People waste so much time because they don't communicate immediately information to the project team that will affect all the work of everybody on that team. Instead, they go to a meeting, they learn something new about, hey, the requirements are changing, we're going to do something different. Then they go to lunch, then they drive back to the office, then they return all their phone calls, then they go home that night. Then the next day, maybe around 10 o'clock, they decide they're going to write a memo to everybody. Well, guess what? There could have been 20 people working over that time doing the wrong thing.
Right.
One of the most glaring examples I saw of that was a project at an AE firm where the structural engineers told me they worked all weekend long, 24 hours a day to get their portion of the job done. Mm-hmm. because they thought they had a hard stop on a Monday, and it turned out the whole deadline had been pushed off by like 30 days. Nobody told them. You think those guys were happy?
No.
They were furious. They were so angry.
Yeah.
I mean, but I see this all the time. I'll give you a perfect example. My other business, I mean, there's a million examples, but it's like I could say, you know what? We should have put 2 shelves over the kitchen sink in those apartments. We're redoing a 20-unit apartment building. They're all the same.
Right.
Okay, we've got a blank space above the kitchen sink. I go in there to look at the first one apartment that's done and go, we should have put 2 shelves in there and fill in that blank space. They need storage. That'll be great. So I could say that to the manager of construction, send that person immediately a photo with a text, and then you know what's going to happen? That may not be communicated to the people who could be redoing the cabinets in 4 apartments today.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the painters come in. Oh, now by the time we actually put it in, geez, we can't do that because the painters are there. So now we're going to have to go back, put the thing in, then touch up all the paint ourselves instead of doing it with the painters. But I mean, that's just as a common example of what happens every day. When you learn new information, something's going to affect the job of everybody else. Boom, get it out. Don't wait for the meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to send a giant meeting minutes thing. You just get this one fact out. Hey, I'm in the middle of the meeting. I can see this is where things are going. Send it out to everybody so they know.
Yeah.
Just get it done now. We need to call somebody. We need to check up and see how such and such is doing with their portion of the job. Okay, let's call them right now. Don't mark that down on your do list for tomorrow.
Just do it now.
Let's do it now,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Let's just do it now.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be done faster, and then you're going to be a lot more efficient, and people will be doing the right thing. And your people will be a lot happier with you, because everybody hates redoing.
Yeah.
Here's the truth of it. Architects, engineers, draftsmen, technicians, whatever, they're craftsmen, a lot of them. That's the mentality. They take pride in their work. Their drawings and plans and specs, whether they're on a computer or on paper, it doesn't matter. There's pride of creation there. They hate to redo. Everybody hates to redo. So the more you can communicate, the faster you can do it. If you don't have time now, what makes you think you're going to have time tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's going to be just as busy as today was. Okay, in fact, you're setting it up to be a lot worse because you're not doing today what you should have done today.
Yeah.
So what you should have got done today is going to roll into tomorrow. Then you got everything that's coming in tomorrow. Now you're going to be even less likely to be able to meet. You see what I mean?
It just adds and adds
It just
and adds.
adds.
Yeah.
Just deal with it now.
Right.
I can't tell you, every single day I see miscommunications, hurt feelings, wasted effort because people are just so damn slow.
Yeah.
Okay?
And there's really no excuse. I mean, the technology's there. We have email. We have our cell phones. So you have text messaging.
Greatest tool there ever was.
I mean,
honest to God.
Without a doubt. All kinds of programs, Slack. I mean, you name it. There's a
Phone.
million different programs. Actual calls, and that's something. Actually, hold on to that thought. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that in a second. You're kind of moving into my next point, but just the simple idea that don't put off till tomorrow what can be done today. And to me, this is one of the biggest takeaways from a project management standpoint. As a project manager, I don't care how long you've been in this industry, you cannot waste time, and the more efficient you are, the more of an impact that you'll make with your clients. And the impact that you make with your clients, especially a positive one like that, will ensure that your firm gets return and repeat business.
That's right. I mean, the camera built into your phone, what a fantastic tool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's so many applications for that.
Yeah.
Even if it's taking a picture of a document you're reading and sending it to somebody and go, what the hell does this mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many opportunities with that phone hooked up to your camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Compared to what we used to go through.
Oh man,
Yeah,
it's huge. It really is huge. So just to piggyback on what you were just talking about a second ago, even though we've gotten used to the fact that there is all this electronic stimulation and communication that's available to us while we're working on projects and just as we manage our everyday lives, why is it important to physically stay in touch with a client in terms of just ringing up the phone and calling them? And we'll talk a little later about physically going to see them, but why is it important to just physically stay in touch with the client?
There's too many young people today think they can do it all with email and texting.
Yeah.
And you've got to get out in front of people. If you want them to like you and trust you, remember that. They're not going to trust you if they don't like you. They're not going to like you if they don't know you.
Right.
They don't know you if they don't ever see you or hear from you. So you have, in order to have a relationship, you've got to talk to people. You've got to go see them. I've got clients that if I don't see them every 6 months, I mean, we're not going to get the work from them. You're going to lose the relationship. They just need to be seen. And then every time you go see them, they give you jobs.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's just a part of their nature. And I think that's part of the problem in the culture that we live in today with this electronic tether that we have is people over-rely on the electronic tether.
They use it as a crutch almost.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like I got something bad to say. I've got to tell somebody some bad news. I'm going to text them. I don't want to say it to their face to get the reaction and deal with their unhappiness.
Well, I think people are just generally afraid of confrontation too. You know, people don't like, even if it's positive, it's like, I don't want to confront anybody. So
again, I've done it myself.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
It's some could say it. It's sort of the chicken way out of things, but it's not good.
It isn't.
You've got to go see people. You got to, in order to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And that relationship is unbelievably valuable to you, because if things are going wrong, and something's not working out, you need to have that relationship in order to be able to work out the problem with the client.
Yeah.
You may get extra time from them. You may get extra money from them. You may get understanding for non-performance. And that's going to be the result of the relationship.
It allows you to buy some time. It allows you to preserve a client relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million things. So just the simple idea of working with someone that knows, likes, and trusts you, you staying in constant contact with them can make all the difference in the world on a personal level, but certainly on a professional level. So
yeah, I mean, I can tell you, pretty much all my friends over the years have been my clients.
Right.
And so that's, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's move forward into this whole idea of communication with the client. For as long as I can remember, you've discussed the importance of doing a weekly memo for the client on every project that we've ever done at Zweig Group. Mm-hmm. If a PM is already staying in touch with a client with emails and the phone conversations that we just alluded to a minute ago, isn't the weekly memo overkill?
That's a very good question, and the answer is no, it's not overkill. Okay. You need to document what's going on. What did we get done last week? What are we going to do this week? And what other special issues or concerns are there? And it's got to go to the whole project team. It's not just your client contact person. It's that person's boss.
Yeah. It's
the other sub-consultants. It's the other people on the team inside the client organization. It's the other people on the team inside our organization. Okay. They need to see this information. The client, the last thing that you want to happen is for you to go away. You get a job, you go away, and you don't even communicate with the client for a month. They think nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't feel
good about you. And that's commonplace in this industry.
And then they don't feel good about you.
Right.
If they think nothing's happening. They're worried. Okay? Why do you want them to be worried? Why would you put yourself in that position? Then you're going to be vulnerable. So alleviate the anxiety, explain to everybody what's going on consistently, not going to be any surprises. If somebody in the client organization is holding you up, then you need to be able to point that out in your weekly memo, which then covers you.
Right.
Okay? It may light a fire under that person to get the information you need or for them to do whatever they need to do. If you try to do that on an individual basis when things go wrong, you're shooting that person in the back. They're going to hate you.
Yeah.
But if this is just part of what you do every week, it's always in there, other special issues or concerns, schedule-related matters, maybe we've got a heading like that, it's just addressed as a matter of course.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, again, if things aren't going well, and your client is a member of a larger organization, which they often are.
Right.
They work for somebody else. who do you think that person, your client contact person, is going to blame if the project goes awry? Are they going to accept the responsibility for it?
Never.
They're going to blame it on you, right?
Yeah.
So it's important for you to have a relationship with whoever they work for. And this is your opportunity to demonstrate how organized you are, keeping them informed along the way of what's happening in the project inside their organization that they themselves are not managing, but somebody who works for them is. So again, I mean, this goes wrong so many ways. In our own firm, I've seen it before. Well, we asked the client who they wanted on the project report, and he said just him. Why in the world did you ask?
Yeah.
Don't ask.
Right.
Automatically include their boss.
Yeah.
Don't ask who should be on it. Okay, you decide who should be on it. Now, if they say, "Hey, take so and so off," well, then of course you're going to have to do that. You're not going to say, "No, our policy is to keep them on there."
We have to have a minimum of 3 people on the project.
Yeah,
memo,
it's but it's such a great tool. I mean, I can't tell you. Companies that do this will have higher client satisfaction. They'll be more profitable, and they'll have what they consider better managed projects internally.
And with everything else that you just mentioned, just real accountability on a project by project basis.
It's all right there. There's a history.
There's never, because people will throw you under the bus quickly, and that can't happen if there is a trail of information, a trail of weekly memos where you're documenting what you're doing for everybody to see, and therefore you can't use that. You can't use the ruse of, well, I wasn't aware of that. Well, the only way you're not aware of it if you don't open your emails and read the information that's coming to you. So.
You can even send things out and see who is opening them.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's so critical. It's just a great tool, and clients love it. When you use that, it actually helps you sell a job. Just say, look, this is what we always do. It's part of our process. Here's all the benefits of it. This is why we do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, sure, it's absolutely critical to be in constant communication with the client. Let them know what you're doing. Yeah. And it'll help them feel like they're getting something for their money.
Yeah.
And then you've got that full history there. If anything ever goes wrong, you can go back to that, and that could save you.
Yeah, and as we learned in a lot of recent news sources, that emails don't necessarily go away.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't.
Yeah.
You can't, even when you delete them, they're not always deleted. So, use that for what it's worth.
Sure.
As you're managing your projects. So now that we've kind of talked about the whole weekly memo and the importance of sending one out, and if you haven't been doing a weekly memo, I hope the stories that Mark just shared with you encourage you to start doing so. It will make a difference, and you'll manage your clients' expectations better, and you'll also manage your team better with a weekly memo, because your level of accountability will go through the roof. So the next thing I want to ask you, Mark, is how often should a project manager visit the job site? I know that's an important aspect of
it's hard to say, give a stock answer to that, but I think more people need to get out on the jobs more than they do.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when our office we were building out an office space in Natick, Massachusetts, there at Apple Hill, and working with a contractor, and he told me he was doing a larger space next door to us for MathWorks, if you remember the company.
I do remember that company.
And anyway, it was a large office space. It was a total build out. It was a reuse of like a 20,000 square foot retail building.
Okay.
And he was laughing about it because the architect had drawn up the plans that showed windows going down this entire wall of the building. It was about 150 feet or more long. And he said, look at these windows. Now let's go outside and take a look at the building. And it was all underground.
Really?
It just was, there was no way you could put any windows down that side of the building.
Really?
And he goes, if this guy ever got off his rear end and came out here onto the site, he would have seen that.
I'm sure he didn't say rear end.
I realize there's a lot of ways to get information today. We can have photos, but nothing takes the place of getting out on the job site itself.
Yeah.
And the people out there doing the work, they're glad to see you there. They it shows some more interest. Might give you a chance to make a connection with the contractor that maybe you don't have such a great relationship with. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Yeah.
You got to get out there, and if it's during the design phase, I mean, you're going to learn from that. You'll see things. It may change what you do ultimately, because you see the context.
Yeah.
You know.
And I know that, obviously in your scope of the proposal itself, you want to certainly make sure that you make allowances for travel to the job site, especially if it's not local.
Yeah.
Because I know that's something that we do even here at Zweig Group. And so you don't want to overlook that one area because I think it's important. So, all right. So in addition to visiting the job site, to stay on top of things, you also have to keep an eye on your project budget and schedule. Is there any set frequency that you recommend to making sure that A, you don't blow your budget, and B, you don't mess up your schedule?
Continuous reevaluation. Again, it's not the way most firms do things.
Okay.
They do it on a cycle. They look at it once a month when they do their billing or
And
whatever.
that's too
Way
far of
too. I mean, the job could be started and finished in a month. Many
Yeah.
are, and so much more frequent. I mean, if you can make your system give you continuous updates of where you stand related to the budget and what the schedule is going to be and how you're doing and compared to the schedule, then you should do it. I mean, to me, that should be modified daily.
Yeah.
Now, the only way you're going to do that is if you collect time daily that you can and you can harvest that from your employees. Not everybody does that.
Right.
But it's a good discipline to get into,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Your employees will be doing a much better job with their record keeping if they know every single day that stuff's gathered up, as opposed to once every 2 weeks. I mean, again, I speak from experience. I've been there on the 2 weeks, and then I'm like, okay, now what did I do? I think I worked 2 hours on that job. I worked an hour on that job. Okay, it's what we all do.
Yeah.
But it's better to collect the time. The more frequently we can collect the time, the more frequently we can look at the budget, the more frequently we can look at the schedule, the greater the odds are that we're going to meet the budget and we're going to meet the schedule.
Yeah, right. Well, and I know that, I mean, I've seen this before with clients, and making sure that that information is constantly updated. I mean, there's all kinds of project management programs, online and otherwise, that firms can use to keep track of that. I know there's a real reliance on a good CFO or COO that would manage a dashboard so that their project managers know, with current up-to-date information, where their projects stand from a financial perspective.
I mean, the problem is in our business that most of us are perennial optimists. We're just overly optimistic. Everything looks good till you get down to the end.
Right.
And we're constantly overestimating how much we've accomplished and underestimating how much is left to be done. And, I've worked with some people, I mean, who are just so bad at that. They just consistently miss time after time after time. In which case, you almost, in some cases, just have to automatically adjust whatever their predictions are by whatever their historical inaccuracy factor is. And that sounds crazy, but I've seen firms that actually did that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a problem, and so the more frequently you look at it, the more you publish that information to the entire project team, the greater the likelihood that you'll meet your requirements.
Well, I totally understand what you're saying, and let's take a look at this as we wrap things up. How important is it to keep your same internal team and sub-consultants intact from project to project? If you can, how important is that?
Well, you said it, if you can. I mean, of course, the more people work together, the easier it is for them to know, like, and trust each other.
Right.
Which is essential to performance. And so, when people work together, then they start to find out what one another's weaknesses and strengths are. And they're going to be much better able to work together successfully the longer they've worked together. You know what so-and-so does well, and you know what so-and-so does poorly.
Okay.
And you know who tends to hit the deadlines and who you're going to have to really manage closely to hit the deadlines.
And who you need to get rid of.
And who you need to get rid of, and who's got quality issues, and who overkills on the quality. I mean, all these things are really important. And so, yeah, the greater the consistency, that's why I'm a really big fan. And it's not really necessarily within the control of the project manager, but for owners of businesses like this, I'm a big fan of the standing team organization structure.
Okay.
And the team gets the project, and the team performs the project, and the team manages all its own projects. And it's a small group of people. If they need to make a change in the schedule or they need to put somebody ahead of somebody else, they do so knowing what the rest of the demands are that they face in their work group. And it just works better than the system where the PMs sit outside or the system where the PMs are in a department and then gather up their resources on every job, unique resources. That's a tough one.
Okay.
To have those consistency in those relationships and team structure. It's very difficult to do with that scenario.
So,
Because you get whoever's available, you get, it just doesn't work as well.
so to piggyback on that, because you've actually introduced a whole nother idea with this whole team concept,
Standing team.
standing team. Will that work? Will that function in a market sector environment just as easily as it would in a geographic environment,
Oh,
or it
yes.
doesn't really matter?
No, it may be better in a market sector environment because
Okay.
then I can have a team that doesn't necessarily have to be in one place.
Yeah.
Team members could be wherever they are, and they could be the best qualified people to work on jobs of a particular type. So, no, I think when you're in a geographic based organization and everything has to be done locally, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the best resources for the client. You get whoever's available in Houston when you do that.
Right.
But that's
Right.
not necessarily who's best. That's what I like about the market sector organization. But I don't want to get off path here.
Right.
The point of this discussion is what can the project manager do themselves? There's certainly a lot of things that the company can do to be more effective as project managers collectively.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that anytime you want, Randy.
And we're going to talk about that. We've actually got quite a bit to talk about in the coming weeks and months ahead. And so we have plenty of topics that you'll be able to partake of in ZLearning. This is just the first of many to come. So why don't we go ahead and move on as we close out to what's the best way to develop your team for the long haul? I'm a young 32-year-old project manager. I've been working with people for a while. I'm actually mentoring a few of the entry level EITs. I'm also working with some folks that are older than me, and I've built a rapport with them. But what's the best way for me as a 32, 33, 34-year-old project manager to develop this team or a team for the long haul?
I mean, that's a really hard question to answer. It always comes down to who do you spend time with? And you show who you're willing to invest in by who you spend time with.
Okay.
And so the only way it's going to happen for you to develop your team is to decide who it is that you think has the most potential and spend your time with them. They need coaching, they need contact, they need advice, they need guidance. But you only got so much time to go around.
Right. Right.
So pick those people wisely. The ones you think who will stay with you. The ones you think actually have the most promise. Throw gas on the fires that burn.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Sure, there's other things you can do to develop people. I mean, it's amazing to me how few companies provide formalized project management training to their project managers. The last time I looked at the data, it was somewhere around 20 or 25% gave some training.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 75 to 80% did nothing. And it's very common. It's like you come to work one day as a young engineer or architect or planner or whatever, and then, hey, we need you to run this job. And there you go. You're now a project manager.
It's almost like baptism by fire.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It really is. On the job training. We're real big on that in this business. On the job training, we don't do any training. It's like word of mouth advertising. We don't do any advertising.
And who tends to suffer because of that?
I mean, yeah.
The client.
The client does. And so everybody's learning on the job, and it's it costs both the company and the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we need more formalized training. I think there are a lot of these skills can be taught. Certainly, communication skills are absolutely essential. Psychology, understanding human behavior.
Yeah.
How valuable is
Influencing.
that
It's
to a
huge.
project manager?
It's huge.
I mean, but again, what do we typically do? We spend a lot of time on our Deltek system, getting people to understand that. A lot of time on liability reduction. Not to say it's not important,
Right.
but there's some of these other soft skills that really make a huge difference to somebody in their career and how effective they're going to be.
And to take it one step further, when that doesn't happen, meaning that opportunity for professional and personal development in these design firms, it's one of the biggest reasons why firms are losing great talent.
Sure.
I mean,
People
it's huge.
people want to self-actualize.
Yeah.
They want to feel like they're improving themselves. I mean, if you're an intelligent person, you want to continue to try to improve.
Right.
If you're not, I guess you're just satisfied with where you are in life, then you don't worry about it. But those aren't the people we have,
Mm-mm.
by and large, as project managers working in this business.
Yeah.
It takes too much
Yeah.
skill, too much effort, too much intensity to succeed. But I do think you can train people, and just, taking people with you, showing people how to do it by example. Again, I think the office layouts really don't work well in our industry.
Right.
Too many people, the managers are in these,
The outside
private offices,
offices.
the perimeter offices, and they've cut off other, everybody else from the communication. I mean, when I started out, I sat in the office with a guy. I listened to him talk to his clients.
And then
And
parroted
his
that, I'm
job.
sure.
Exactly. And
yeah.
then I sat out in a bullpen with like 6 or 7 other people, and the boss is in there, And so you hear him when he's talking to clients.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about that, or when he's talking with sub-consultants, or talking with other people on your team even.
Absolutely.
We've cut people off from the learning. And we think it's going to be all formalized. And we segregated them and alienated them with our physical office space. And who do we spend time with? Every day we go to lunch with our fellow partners? Or do we go out with other people in the firm and build some relationships with them? People that are lower down in the organization, but people we rely on to get stuff done.
Yeah.
That's important too, because we can influence these people. We can educate them. We can inspire them. We can get them to understand what's important. And they'll do a better job as a result.
Yep.
You know?
I agree. Man, you've laid it all on the line in this past hour and really put some serious information there. I wasn't sure we were going to have enough information to share, but we had that and more. So I want to thank you so much for giving us, these 15 great tips and then some on getting the most out of the project management process. Do you have any final thoughts to share before we close out this ZLearning session?
Yeah, I think, we say the project managers are important, but we really don't act like it. I think we've got to elevate the importance of these people in our organizations. That's going to take, I think, more public information on how they're performing, so the best PMs really can enjoy the limelight, and people can see the profitability that they bring back to the firm, the client satisfaction ratings that they achieve, the satisfaction reflected in additional work that they generate.
Mm-hmm.
As one of my friends gave a talk to my class here recently, my entrepreneurship class, and he said, he talked about as a kid, you get these certificates of appreciation or whatever, participation, because as an adult you get these certificates of appreciation called a dollar.
Right.
That's a certificate of appreciation.
The dollar bill.
And anyway, because you do a good job, you get lots of certificates of appreciation. But I think we need to treat these people better.
Yeah.
They don't get enough attention. People who sell work get attention.
Yeah.
Maybe the top designer gets attention because they enter in design competitions and things. But the rest of the people, the project managers, have to every day slog it out and make sure that this complex project is delivered on time and a client's happy at the end. That's that's a really hard job, and it needs to get a lot more attention and praise and recognition and maybe money. That's all I know.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate that mic drop moment because with that, I think we're done. That's a lot of great information. Listen, I want to thank you for watching this ZLearning episode on 15 things you can do to be a more effective project manager. Remember, in order to get continuing education credit, you must follow the instructions in the email that came along with this video. Complete a short quiz, and a certificate will be provided to you immediately. Stay tuned for our next ZLearning class. Whether you are looking for online continuing education classes in project management, business development, marketing, leadership, or financial management for AEC professionals, ZLearning has got you covered. Zweig Group's ZLearning offers fresh and relevant content that won't put you to sleep. That's why you hear the train in the background. Anyway, visit us at zweiggroup.com for more information and a list of our classes and services. Until the next CEU, we'll see you later. My encouragement is that as we've gone through. That's all in there, right?
It is, but
It's all right.
just for something funny, I might add like a little animated
Choo, choo, choo,
train
choo,
going
choo, choo.
across.
Right.
That'd be
Okay.
funny, yeah.
That
She'll
would
deal
be
with
funny.
it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We will leave it up to our amazing editor and videographer to take care of that. So.
Train going across, train going across, train going across, train going across, train going across.